Welcome to Don't Pick the Scab podcast. Today's guest is a beacon of hope for anyone reeling from the shock of an unexpected divorce. After dedicating 25 years to her marriage and family as a stay-at-home mom, she was blindsided by divorce, a moment that turned her world upside down. Through her journey of heartbreak, confusion, and ultimately empowerment, she discovered not only how to survive, but how to thrive. Now, as a certified divorce coach, she specializes in guiding those who feel lost, betrayed, and overwhelmed, especially women, through one of life's toughest transitions. Her mission is to help others avoid the mistakes she once made, making better decisions and finding their strong, confident voice, whether it's sorting through emotions, organizing finances, or building a support team. She offers compassion, knowledge, and a clear path forward. Please welcome a true advocate for resilience and recovery after divorce, Lori Heller. Lori, thank you for your patience this morning.
Absolutely. Technology is not always our friend. Thank you so much for having me today, Dave.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this.
As you mentioned, I was married for 25 years. I have 3 wonderful boys. And one day my husband walked in and said he wanted out and he wasn't happy and that our marriage was ending. And I was just in shock, to say the least. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I felt like my whole world came crashing down on me. And so I felt like I just went through the motions of the whole divorce process. I was scared. I was angry. I had all the emotions. And after I came out the other side, I decided there has to be a better way. I just hated what I went through, what my family went through, and most importantly, what my children went through. And I knew there were lots of other people out there going through the same thing that I was. So I went back to work in marketing consulting, and I realized that just wasn't really resonating with me. And I wanted to help people avoid making the same mistakes I made, but also figure out what they wanted in that next chapter in their life. Because even though when you're in it, you feel like it's never going to end, it does end. And so you want the best future you can have for yourself and for your kids. And so I went back to school. I became a certified divorce coach. And I mostly focus on working with women, but I find that there are so many similarities between men and women when they're going through this process. So I thought it would be a great time to talk about what some of those similarities are and maybe what some of those differences are.
So let's start with one similarity. What's the biggest similarity?
I think probably the emotional side of things, right? I think men and women never bring their best self to the table when divorce is concerned. So you find all the messiness in the middle of the process. And I think the anger clouds judgment. And so you aren't getting the best version of yourself, whether you're the husband or the wife in the divorce process.
How did your experience, this is going to be interesting, how did your experience as a stay-at-home mom shape your divorce journey? How do you think that?
Well, I think finances were the biggest concern for me. I had been a stay-at-home mom and I had been out of the workforce. I had a college degree, I had a master's degree, yet the biggest concern for me was how am I going to pay the rent or pay a mortgage or even get a mortgage? And how am I going to take care of my children? And how are we going to be okay financially? I had so many financial questions. And I think that's what kept me up at night in the very beginning of my divorce, the fear of how am I going to make this all work?
How did you find support when friends and family couldn't fully understand? That's a big thing with me.
I was really fortunate to find a certified divorce financial analyst who was very instrumental in helping me wrap my head around a budget and what that was going to look like and what I needed to do to get my financial house in order. And she was invaluable to me. And so that's why I started thinking, gosh, there have to be a lot of people out there that don't even know such a person exists. And I talked to my divorce attorney and he said to me, why don't you become a divorce coach? And I didn't know what that was. So I had to do some research and find out what that was. And so now one of the biggest takeaways that I had is you really need to get that tribe together. And your friends and family get so tired of hearing you complain. And they're great. They're a great source to sit down and have a glass of wine with, but they don't want to hear about it over and over again. Sometimes you fixate on what your ex did and people they don't want to hear about it anymore. They feel sorry for you, but they don't know what to do. So you need those professionals in your corner that do this day in and day out and can help you.
I think that one of the biggest differences between men and women getting divorced is that men are trained to be the hunter-gatherers and bottle up your emotions and things like that. So things get to a pressure point where things happen. And with me, I think I told you before when we did the pre-interview, I had problems with my anger and I didn't know how to channel it. Do you see women have problems with their anger too?
Anger is a part of it, but I think there's also that emotional breakdown. I have women come to me all the time saying, I just can't even get out of bed. And I cry all day long. And I don't know that men necessarily do that. They say I go in the shower and I
They
cry.
do. They do.
Yeah, so it's just, I feel like, and it's more accepted though, I think, in society for women to be crying all the time. And for men, you tell them, okay, get it together, get over yourself, man up, that kind of thing. And for women, I think it's a little more accepted, but then people get tired of it. They're like, oh my gosh, okay, get on with yourself. What is wrong with you? It's just a marriage, it's not the end of the world. But in that moment, it is the end of the world. And you look at the future and you think, you knew what was going to happen. Your kids were going to be grown. You and your spouse were going to travel together or have the grandkids over and you were going to play with them. It was all going to be in this family home and you had your life mapped out and now the rug has been pulled out from under you and that's not how it's going to be.
What are the most common mistakes that women make during divorce, you think?
I think some of them, for me in particular, I'm a type A perfectionist and it's my way or the highway. I wanted everything to go the way I thought it should go and I didn't want to hear anything else. And I don't know if I think men and women can both share that same mistake, but you have to get over yourself pretty quickly if you want this divorce to go smoothly. Have you ever seen that with men, that if they want it their way?
Yeah, I think we talked about it's more so with co-parenting. They want to control what happens at the ex's house. That
Yes.
is big with men. And when I talk to guys about that sometime, I say, hey, and it's hard to explain to them that they don't have control, but they still try to control it. And I think we talked about before that my co-parenting was very contentious and I got through it by realizing that I love my kids more than I hated my ex.
I
And I
think
was
that's a
able
super
to
thing.
I was able to go through that. But yeah, men do go through hard times and men are more controlling. And I think when you lose that control, that is a big hit to the confidence and everything else.
And then the other extreme from that is when you can't control it, then you get to the point where you just want to throw in the towel. And that's another common mistake where you're just, I'm over this. I'm all done with it. I can't deal with it anymore. I don't care what happens. I'm out. And that's another, you can't go there either, right? You need to see this process through. You need to regulate your emotions and keep your head in the game and stay with it through the process. Otherwise, you're doing everyone a disservice.
Yeah. How do you think people should begin to rebuild their confidence and sense of self? Because with men, it takes a huge hit. Self-confidence is a big thing with men.
I think self-care, you touched on it before, but that's what I talk to women about. And maybe it is easier for women to understand that piece, and that looks different for everyone. So for me, it was getting in some regular exercise and not skipping that. I like to do yoga. So I did yoga. And so meditating, yoga, journaling. I know a lot of men, actually. I've worked with a few men, and journaling seems to be something that men will do. And I think if you have issues with anger, and if you can get that down on paper, and then you set that aside, and then by the time you come back to it a couple weeks down the road, you realize that none of that matters anymore. You don't care anymore. The anger's gone. But at least if you can get it out somewhere, getting it out on paper is better than getting it out in front of your children in particular, but even with your ex. If you can just write it, that sometimes helps. So I think that self-care component, and you have to figure out what that looks like for you. Do you need to get a massage? Do you, as a woman, do you want to go get a facial? Whatever it is that helps you regulate those emotions and brings that sense of calm or peace back is super important, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else.
Yeah.
So we really try to get women to focus on that.
Men suck at that because they're used to taking care of everybody else. I tell people it's like when the plane's going down, you don't put your kids' oxygen mask on first, because if you do, you're a goner.
Yep.
And so men have to take care of themselves, but it's hard to fathom. It's almost to the point where you have to be selfish sometimes to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your kids. And then on the other side of that is one of the people I interviewed, they were talking about the Jack in the Box dad, where you have the kids for the week and go, and then the kids are gone for a week and you're back in the Jack in the Box and you close the lid and snap it and then you're done until the kids come back. And that doesn't work either. You have to practice self-care when they're there and when they're gone too. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that self care has to be the fundamental piece, regardless of whether you're with your kids or not with them. You need to focus on taking care of you. Because again, if you're not, when I was going through my divorce, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And the doctor looked at me and said, "What in the world is going on in your life that's so stressful?" And he said to me, "When I look at your cortisol levels, this is a stress cancer." And I thought, wow,
Wow.
that can cause this. This is crazy. And that's when that was my big reality check of I need to take care of me. I can't keep all these emotions bottled up. I can't let this anger and this sense of loss overtake my life. I need to figure out how I'm going to take care of me going forward, because this was an enormous wake up call.
What role does a divorce coach play that's different from a therapist or a lawyer? Where is your wheelhouse?
So I
And
work with attorneys all the time, and I say to them, how can I best help you? And what they tell me is that I can help manage the emotions of their clients so that when they come to them, they're ready to focus on the business side of divorce. So my role is to get people to see clearly what it is they want to get out of this divorce, what they want their next chapter to look like, what's most important to them for themselves and for their children, so that when they go meet with the attorney, they're not spending all the money complaining to the attorney about what an asshole their ex was, and that they can focus on the dollars and cents of it and the logistics of co-parenting arrangements, and that they're not caught up in the overwhelm of wanting to be right all the time.
yeah, you talk about co-parenting. Let's go ahead and switch gears on that. How did you support your children emotionally during your divorce? Or what do you suggest to other people to support their children during divorce?
Again, I go back to it's not who's right or who's wrong, right? It's going to look different, and you have to accept that it's going to look different. You can't, the only thing you can control is you, is one of my favorite things to tell my clients. So when your children are at your ex's house, you can't control what happens there. It's none of your business, really. It's as long as it's not harmful, as long as there's not anything going on that's going to harm your child, you have to recognize that you both want the same thing at the end of the day. You want happy, healthy children, and you both love those children. And so if you do it one way and I do it another way, it doesn't necessarily make one way right and one way wrong. And so we spend a lot of time talking about letting go of, if you don't like the way that they do something, then you can't say anything about that. That has to be something that you let go of. It's one of those things that if you want to have peace, what you can control is what goes on at your house. And you have your rules at your house, and your children will understand these are the rules at mom's, these are the rules at dad's. And if there are some major things that you want to make sure are the same across the board, that's something you have to work out with your ex. But the day to day, the minutia, you just can't, you've got to let that go.
Yeah, I had a story. Guy's going to be a hell of an edit here, and I totally lost it. What are some of the first steps that someone should take after being blindsided by a divorce? What do you suggest?
You have to take a deep breath, and you have to realize that the sun is going to come up tomorrow as much as you don't think it's going to. When a divorce is happening, especially if it's a situation like mine, you really have to start to understand the finances. If you want to talk about getting really into the details of divorce, I think you have to get an understanding of what that is. And one of the other common mistakes is that people aren't willing to negotiate, but you do have to get into that negotiation mindset. You can't have everything, and there has to be a negotiation. So we need to A, understand the finances, but B, what's most important for you in your life with your children. A lot of women don't want to leave the marital home, but that's not often financially the best thing for them to do. And so you really need to take a deep dive and talk to some real estate professionals and figure out, is that really the best thing for you? And so I think right at the very beginning, it's the logistical things that you have to focus on.
So now I remember. So this friend of mine was getting divorced, and his ex, he was moving into a new rental house, and his ex said that she wanted to check the house out before he moved in there to make sure that it was okay for the kids. So yeah, there you go. It can be crazy. Co-parenting, for me, that was the hardest part. And once I figured it out, it takes you a while to get your sea legs, and you got to figure out how to do it. But sometimes you have to co-parent separately, like we talked about before.
Yep.
And that's hard. So how can people learn to co-parent separately if it's contentious?
Again, you have to understand the only thing you can control is you. And so I go back to that all the time and really focus on what's happening at your home with your children there. And you have to let go of what's happening when they're not with you. And if you start new traditions and become excited about this new life that you're creating, and you focus on the good and you let go of all those things that aren't serving you anymore, I think you'll find yourself in a much better place if you can learn how to do that.
What does it mean to get out of your own story and the drama? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of women in particular, they are caught up in my ex did this. This is what happened to me. This is why my situation was so much worse than yours. And we have to let all of that go. We have to decide there's a whole new life waiting for us. And the more time we spend fixating on what happened to us and how wrong it was and how we were wronged, that's less time we're spending on creating this beautiful new life for ourselves. And so if we can get past, okay, it happened. And even when we talk about forgiveness, if you're able to forgive, that doesn't mean you have to forget. That part of you still exists, but let's now focus on the next chapter and let's make that a kick-ass chapter. So we're living our best life and we're not focused on all those things that happened to us because that's in the past, that's gone.
So how do you help your clients move from surviving to thriving? What's that switch, you think?
I think that a lot of times people, men and women, we get married, we lose ourselves in that relationship and we forget what it is that about ourselves, the things that we loved. And so I try to help them find that again. I had a client who loved riding horses and she stopped doing that when she got married and had children. And I said, okay, maybe you're not going to own a horse now, but is there a place that you can go and go out on a trail with a horse that will bring you joy again? So she went, she found that, and she joined a group of other people that love to trail ride. And she gets out on her horse and she finds that peace again. And so what is it that you loved before that you can reclaim as your own again? And so I asked them to focus on those types of things, and then you can rediscover yourself.
What do you think the most rewarding part of your work as a divorce coach is?
When that light bulb goes off for a woman who says, oh my gosh, I'm happy. I'm truly happy. I'm not walking on eggshells anymore. And I realize that I just don't care what he's doing anymore. And I'm just happy in the life that I've created for myself and for my family. And thank you. And I love that.
Yeah, that's a huge step. So how do you help clients overcome the stigma or shame around divorce? That is big, especially with men. Look, keeping up with the Joneses, that is really big with men. How do you help clients overcome that stigma?
Yeah, that's big for women too. And they're comparing themselves to other people. And so you try to focus on not comparing yourself to other women or other families. A lot of times you've not only lost your husband and your family, but you might have had a friend group and that friend group becomes divided. Some of them are now still hanging out with your ex and some of them are with you. And sometimes it's time to create a whole new friend group of people that serve the place where you are now. And so now you might be losing some friends too. And that's a hard thing to accept. But in order to truly move forward and embrace your new life, sometimes that's what you have to do, is that there are certain people that you just can't have in your life anymore. And that's difficult. But that's an unfortunate truth of divorce.
Correct. Yeah. This is one of my favorite questions. What advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
That this is going to be over. This whole process, all this stress, all this drama, all this anger, you're going to get past it. You're going to get through it and you're going to thrive on the other side of it. And you're going to create a life that is so much better than what you have right now. And so just keep your head in the game and keep moving forward. And there are going to be great things coming your way and everyone's going to be okay. And it's going to be a new reality, but it's going to be a great.
There you go. New reality is not overrated. What are some of the things you want to tell my men out there in dealing with their divorce with women? What's some of the positive things you can tell or maybe help them in their divorce with women?
So I think one of the other mistakes that we didn't touch on is going all in on the next relationship. And for some reason, I see men doing this more often than women. And the women that I work with get so mad about how can he move on so easily? How did he so quickly jump into that next relationship. And I think maybe you need to be sensitive to the fact that women don't typically do that as easily and as quickly. And when you're bringing that person around your children, have some grace and understand that's sometimes a little harder for women to accept than for men, and recognize that fact would be my advice. Just understand that it might not be as easy for your ex-wife to go there as it was for you. And that's okay. Give her some time and she'll come around. But if she's not totally excited for you in the very beginning, understand it's just because you're wired differently.
Yeah. Let me answer for men. That was a good point. Let me do the, the point counterpoint here. A lot of men use relationships to heal. And my friend did that quite a bit. And he finally learned to sit back and stop that and work on himself. And yeah, I really can't explain it. It just happens. And you take a hit to your ego. So getting another relationship is like a definitive, like, dun, 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 dun. And yeah, so with men, like you said, men and women are wired differently because sex to men is like peeing in the bushes and sex to women is like emotional. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think just accepting that fact and for men and understanding that while you might be there, your ex-wife probably is not. Some of them are. I often have women that they just want another man to save them. They want another man to come along and save them. I'm personally not that way, but a lot of women are. And so what you said is what's so important. Heal yourself first. In order for you to show up in a relationship in a healthy way, you need to heal yourself. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, it doesn't matter. I think as long as you heal yourself, then you're not going to repeat the same mistakes. Because regardless of if you want to say it was your fault or your ex's fault, there's always a part of you that you can improve. And so I think if you heal yourself first, then you are positioning yourself to be a better partner in that next relationship.
How do you help clients define and pursue a new fulfilling life post-divorce? What are some of the things that you help them with?
So I help them find their tribe, right? That's super important to get the right people around you to help you, whether it's through the divorce process. Those are the divorce professionals, the attorneys, the divorce coach, the real estate professionals, all those folks, maybe a therapist, whatever they need to find their tribe there. But then when they look at what they want their new life to contain, who are the people that are successfully living the life that you want? Surround yourself with those people. Then they can show you a path to creating that life that you want. I think that's really important to find your tribe would be number one. So whether you're in the divorce, in the middle of the divorce, at the beginning of the divorce, in the middle, or at the end of the divorce, there's always a tribe of people that can help you get to where you want to be.
Okay. And what are some of the signs that someone is truly healing and moving forward? What are some of the signs that you see that they're actually going towards their new reality?
When they're not fixated on what happened to them, when they're not stuck in their story anymore, when they're talking about things for the future, and when they're enjoying something new. They've joined a new club. I joined a book club when I went through my divorce because I love to read. And that was so healing for me. I made some new friends. It was a day of the month that I looked forward to. It was a legit book club where we talked about the books. And so I really loved that. And so when they start to really work on themselves and create new hobbies, maybe some volunteer work, I think that's super important to give back. So finding those groups that you want to help and find ways that you can help them. I think all of those things, if I see women starting to do that, then I know they're coming out of the other side.
All right. Lori, this has been interesting, man. This has been fun.
Yeah.
It's looking into not the soul, but into someone other than men. I get stuck on men and then I forget there's another part, but you've shown me that. So I really appreciate it.
We're alike than we are different.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Where can the people find you on the internet?
So my website is womenindivorce.com. And then I have a Lori Heller divorce coaching. They can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, or on LinkedIn.
And we will have all those connections on the show notes. And I appreciate you hanging out with me Friday morning, and hold on the line. Thank you very much.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
All right. Oh, yeah, it is Halloween. That's right.